Welcome to the Savvy Property Investors Podcast, a weekly show that delivers the best hard-hitting property industry news, business advice, and talks that will get you ascending in the real estate industry. Now, here's your host, the amazing award-winning property and business coach, best-selling author, and serial entrepreneur, Miss Sapphire Gray.
Welcome to another Savvy Property Investors Show. I'm Charity Chikene, and on today's edition, we are focusing on the current state of the property market. And to discuss this further is none other than our very own property guru and coach, Miss Sapphire Gray. Miss Sapphire, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for sharing the spotlight yet again.
Excellent.
I think you need to interview me and put me out there.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you taking the chance on young entrepreneurs, giving them the spotlight to be able to showcase what they have. So thank you so much. I'm really excited for this edition. We're talking about the property market and in the UK, and this is one edition for the young people, the young generation, and looking at the statistics, the property market is one way of securing your future. So I'm pretty excited to get this edition out to the listeners out there. To kickstart us off, we have faced a pandemic.
Absolutely.
And literally, it's like we have lost one full year. We are trying to recover, and the question on people's minds is, are we still at a good time when we look at property and investing in the property market?
Absolutely. I mean, there's not been a better time to actually go for investments. I mean, as you just highlighted, that we have gone through 18 months of sheer panic and through the pandemic as well. Investors are looking for opportunities now. People are looking for opportunities now because they've realized that nothing is secured in life, and life is not waiting on anyone anymore. So trying to get residual income coming in, trying to do investments is what everyone's looking to do now, to try and make sure that they don't ever get in a situation where, if they've been made redundant, if they've been fired, or just simply cannot haven't got a regular cash flow coming in, that they've got a backup plan as well. I'm a planner from A to Z, so a lot of people are now looking at, whether young or old, what can I do to secure my future as well.
Okay, so with the pandemic is here, it's with us. Have you noticed any changes pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Pre-COVID, a lot of people were sort of coasting. I noticed that a lot of people that I was coaching thought they had time, and started to play with time and saying, oh, I can build up my property business and take my time in doing it. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But what happened is during COVID, there was some significant opportunities, i.e. having a service accommodation when, you have to isolate. Hotels were locked down, but service accommodations wasn't. Now, if they had set up their business, they could have offered homes to nurses, doctors on the service accommodation front, because they would have had that opportunity. So pre-COVID, it was a slow coasting pace. Yeah, I can invest. I'm going to take my time. After COVID, there's been a rush of a glut of people wanting to move because they want with gardens. People wanting to move because it's unaffordable now in certain parts of the UK, for instance, London. People wanting to rent in other places as well. There's so much things. And stamp duty holiday just saw a flurry of investors and people that wanting to buy their first property coming onto the market because they saw an opportunity and they thought, we're going to go for it now. So yeah, there's been a massive shift, and there's some record-breaking figures that are out there as well in regards to investors and people that's purchasing, and even people that are renting properties. So there's a lot that's come on after COVID, and I think a lot of people have pivoted. A lot of investors, estate agents, letting agents, auctioneers have pivoted. They've all had to move online, but I think their businesses have flourished, and lessons have been learned to always have systems.
Okay, then that's some positive news, coming from you. So I think the most, the next best question to ask is, what are some of the popular places to invest in the UK?
Well, saying that, we run a show every Monday called In the News with Savvy Sapphire. And one of the news reports that I highlighted was where is the most popular and profitable investment areas. And, according to recent property market forecasts, Washington in Tyne and Wear takes the #1 spot. Hartlepool is another one, Sunderland, Newcastle under Lyme in Staffordshire sits in 6th place, and Grimsby in Lincolnshire, Bootle also. But Washington, Hartlepool and Sunderland are between 48,000 to 53,000. So the North East couldn't be beaten for value that it offers, and very accessible for investment opportunities and great future potentials. Also, it's a staggering 7.9% yield and a maximum of 23.3%. And in second place was Bootle at 7.1% average yield. So the yields are good. The returns on your investment is good. So yeah, that's why, these are the areas that are most popular to invest in currently.
All right. So the particular regions you've just mentioned seem to be on the Northeast England, location. So what are the insights? Give us some insights on the pros and cons of investing there.
Well, I'm going to start with the pros. I always like to start off positive anyway. So the pros of investing in there is that the low buy-in entry. So if you're looking at properties in these kind of areas, you're looking at sort of around the 48,000 mark to 53,000. So stretching your money further is one of the positives in this kind of thing as well. Easy to rent out is another one. That's on a positive. Your rental yields are really good. So once you purchase a property there, you're going to be able to rent it out and yield a good high percentage. The negative is, I would say, if you are in your comfort zone and don't want to move out of your area. So for instance, if you lived in London and said, oh, the Northeast is too far for me to go, I'm refusing, then I would say distance is going to be for one. But if you are a true investor, distance shouldn't be an issue. So, and on the other side as well, if you're a flipper, if you like to buy, renovate, and sell, you might not find the margins in there for you to do that. So it's kind of a capital growth that you're looking at. Not capital growth, a capital growth property you're looking at when you're buying these types of properties as well, because you're going to hold them on for longer. So if you're building out a portfolio, it's really good to start looking in these types of areas for that kind of kinds of properties. So I would say distance is a negative, but also it makes a positive, another positive, it makes your money go further. So yeah.
And we can't beat that. If you're able to secure an extra coin and note here.
Absolutely.
So there are investors out there. And yes, we'd want, looking at the statistics and even the information you've just given us, which is wonderful, we still have the COVID-19 still in our minds. It's a reality. It's our new normal, and there's no way, we can do away with it. We have to, adapt and create, avenues of succeeding despite having the COVID pandemic. So how can investors recover from the void periods that occurred during, the COVID-19 period?
To start looking at where you feel that the void periods happen, because I'm always saying it's dependent on types of tenants that you have, and also current situations that your tenants have gone through. So some tenants could be being paying regular through the whole of the pandemic, but then they came into being redundant or just simply lost their jobs, or just it became unaffordable. So to avoid this is to make sure that you're up on your game, that your properties are suitable to cater for people that might still have fear, that is clean, it's tidy, it's home to them. They feel secured and they feel safe in there. That will help you to avoid void periods, as well as making sure that if you know that there's going to be a potential tenant coming up that's leaving the property, make sure that you're always cycling back into the letting agencies, making sure that your property is well looked after, that there's no repairs to be done. And, you know, you've got letting agents that can act fast, because there is a shortage of housing. So there shouldn't really be any void periods. Yes, there was a lot through the pandemic because everyone was on furlough, and we're coming off furlough shortly over here. So there obviously was void periods. I always kind of set out my plan of pre-COVID, and I got professional tenants into my properties, and I've always kept an eye on them. And I think that's the communication between yourself and your tenants is also key. If you can communicate with your tenants, and even if they pay a token payment towards your rent as well, that would avoid void periods as well. But when you do have it, when you do have void periods, you're supposed to have a pot that covers you for these types of incidents. And I always say that people should have a side pot of funds. So when you're getting in your income regular from your lettings, always make sure you've got a side pot aside from your income coming in from that property to cover anything eventual that could happen. So that could be decorating, that could be your void periods. So you're always covering yourself financially, so you're not struggling to then pay the mortgage. Because you can't turn around and tell the lender, hey, Mr. Lender or Miss Lender, I can't afford to pay you this month. They still want their money. And then that throws you into a whole different cycle of owing your lenders money. So look at always making sure you manage your financials when you've got your tenants coming in. Make sure you set aside a pot, particularly for void periods. That way you can avoid them, because you've already got that fund sitting in there.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're taking a quick commercial break, but join us after with more insights from Sapphire about the current UK property market. Okay. Welcome back to the Savvy Property Investors Show. I'm Charity Chikane, and on this edition, we are focusing on all things current UK property market. And to discuss this, we have on the opposite side of the studio from me, Miss Sapphire Gray, Savvy Women's Group CEO and founder. Now, earlier on, you had spoken so well about the opportunities out there for people to invest in the UK, and you mentioned about Northeast England being a particular investor-friendly region. Mm-hmm. Currently, we're in a state of a new normal, mm-hmm. where people are working from home. So, looking at statistics, more people are, willing to stay back at home and work from home remotely. Mm-hmm. How can, this new normal, be of our benefit? How can investors still, be interested in commercial opportunities while still maintaining, the ability to work remotely?
Well, working remotely and commercial investments are kind of two different things. So let's talk about people still working remotely. Yeah, a lot of buildings are becoming available because a lot of companies are now realizing that, hey, we can still have our teams working remote. So they're letting go these big rental properties. They're letting go their leases. They're saying, look, that's no longer where we need to be. If we've gone for a whole year and we've actually managed to work remotely, why are we then incurring additional costs for these big rental properties and leasing them? However, that then presents an opportunity for people wanting to get into the commercial space to do commercial conversions. So they're simply having a commercial spot and converting it into residential. So there's two swings here. It's for those who said, I'm not paying these big rents, but then it's an opportunity for investors to come in and say, okay, I can look at commercial units now and convert them. And last year we saw a massive change in PD rights. Government announced different commercial changes, and it's always wise to look up what's new in the commercial space and what you can actually do with a commercial property now. So yeah, it's a really good space to get into, and I always recommend diversifying your portfolio as well in the commercial space as well. So it allows you that flexibility to have both residential and commercial. that you've got income coming in from both. And if you're developing property and you're going to do a commercial to a conversion residential, it's a perfect opportunity for you to do it in that space. And now is that time, because they're all on the market now, and there's a lot of commercial properties that are on the market that, you know, local government is also saying, well, use up our high streets, convert them, so they're not left there empty, they're not turning into ghost towns, they're turning into places where people can live. Because as I said before, housing is short, and that's what we need to do.
Okay, so, you know, given the whole, you know, aspect of, you know, people working remotely, investors can still put their money in commercial properties.
True.
Like what you hear so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button below. Our podcast is only made possible by great listeners like you.
Okay. We are talking about properties and all this, but the most valuable asset, you know, for property to exist is land. So what are some of the pitfalls that could occur in investing in land at the current market?
Well, you have to make sure that it's land that you can potentially build on. Again, I've done another spot on in the news on Monday and talked a lot about land and what are the pitfalls of investing in land and what is the positive of investing in land. Now, when you're looking at land as a totality, you have to make sure if you're buying land with a residence currently on there, is it coming under classed as farmland? Can you get services to this land? Can you build? Is it brownfield? You have to look at what is the land used for currently, and will you get planning permission for that land? Now, if you're building to rent, is it in the right location that you want to build to rent? Is there going to be enough influx for people to buy properties if you're buying land to develop out? So there's lots of different caveats when it comes around land that you really have to do your research on and make sure that you are armed with all of this research, so that you don't buy land that will not yield you anything in the long run. Also, going to your local authority to ask whether you could potentially get planning permission on land is key as well. Because if there's no chance that you'll get planning permission, then there's no purpose in buying it. Or you could sit on it and hope for the best. That's another way of looking at it. Or you can create, most lands gives you the option that you can create buildings that is not permanent. Now, if you're a savvy investor, you could do non-permanent structures and rent them out as service accommodation. So you can create log cabins on this land and then rent it out as that. Again, you have to go through building regs and see whether that's permitted for you to do. But if it's non-permanent, then yes. And there's certain times of the years that you can, amount of times in a year that you could rent these out for. But also that's utilizing the land. If you currently can't actually put a permanent structure on it, you could put a temporary structure that is not classed under the building, under the planning regs, but you still have to get building regs on that.
All right, circling back to, you know, our conversation earlier where you had spoken about, you know, converting commercial properties into rental income generating resources. Looking at the land investor, what role can the property investor, you know, a land property investor do to be mindful of the state of the social housing and, you know, the lack of adequate housing for the many Britons out there?
So when you're looking at that, comes under the build to rent scenario. So when you're looking at to try and alleviate social housing, it's looking at, can I be the housing? Now, I understand it to be that over a certain amount of housing anyway, you do give back into the pool of social housing. But I always believe that if someone could create a formula where social housing was taken into consideration, or affordable housing, I like to call it, where people can rent cheaply or buy cheaply. There's lots of government schemes that happened a few years ago where you could save towards your first time buyer, but sometimes it's still unaffordable for them. So making properties that are affordable is a really good way of looking at it. And build to rent is a different landscape as well, because build to rent gives you community areas. It could have gyms in it. There's so much opportunities in the build to rent space that, you know, any developer is now moving in. I mean, this was an American thing, and now the UK is picking up on this build to rent and finding it really more profitable, because they're able to utilize the asset in a way that no other community is able to do it, because you're building a community within that framework. There's community spaces, like you can see each other. There's computer spaces, there's gyms. I know some build to rents, they've put TVs in all of their rooms, ensuite, all of these things that you'll get if you was buying a property. So building it to rent it, you're also making it profitable, but a community thing. And then people that are on social housing might have that opportunity as well to partake in this, in renting these types of properties as well.
Okay, so you've given us an array of, you know, wonderful information that, you know, property is the way to go. It's one way you can secure your future.
Yeah.
So now let's play a game here. Let's pick your brain.
Okay.
Let's, hypothetically speaking, we have 50,000 right now to spend on an investment.
Yeah.
So this is money. It's hypothetical, but right now we're placing it on your hands.
Okay.
Here's 50,000 pounds. Explain to us how you would invest this particular money in the property market.
Okay, so I'm going to Newcastle upon Tyne.
Okay.
I'm looking for a property that's worth around 100,000 or less. I know that I'm going to a mortgage. I'm going to put a mortgage on it that's 75% loan to value of the property. So that's 75% of the 100,000. So the lenders are going to give me 75,000. So all I have to put in is my deposit. Yeah. So I'm putting in my deposit. I'm going to put 25k down on this 100,000 property. But also I've got all my other associated costs. Now my other associated costs is stamp duty, insurance, broker fees, any renovation fees I've got in that. So that's 23,000. So my total outspend, that's the 25,000 deposit, all associated costs, 23,000. That works out to 48,000, and I got 2k as change.
And who would have thought, really, you know, I guess, you know, for the investor out there, when we look at that, when you've broken it down so simply, but you know, when I look at 50,000, I'm like, okay, and yet I need to buy the building, it's 100,000, there's a deficit. So maybe it's getting to know the opportunity out there to you know, to cancel out the deficit, you know, mindset.
Yes.
That investors have. And I'm going to put here, you know, you have a book that's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
October the 1st. And, you know, you've just explained so systematically how you can be a wise investor with just 50,000 and still have pocket change to invest in another property. Tell us a little more about why we should go out there and get this book, because it's your brain literally on every page. So to the listener out there, this is why you should
to share the title of the book as well.
Okay, take it away.
Yeah, the book that's coming out is all about how to invest as a savvy woman and nail it. And it's basically about how women look at funds. How do you look at your money? How do you look at your mindset? So I'm taking you through a whole process of who you are as a woman. And why are you so risk averse? Why is it that you're not looking for opportunities for yourself, not only in the investment realm, but as an employee as well? Do you want to climb the ladder? So I address that. Do you find yourself confident? I address that. There's so many different things that I address, and I'm going to do a special on the 1st of October. We'll actually take you through some segments of the book and share with my audience exactly why I wrote it in the way I did, And I take you also through my personal journey through investing as well, the ups, the downs, and all the in-betweens. Because people think that when you're getting into investing, that it's an easy road. I know when I shared this with my members the other day, when I got into investing in property, I was so nervous. I cried. I said, I've just spent all this money, and I was really nervous. And back then we didn't have the property coaches that you have now. Back then I was going for your Thompson Locals, your Yellow Pages. It wasn't the social media frenzy that we have in front of us today. So I done it the hard way, trudging streets, going networking events, looking, in the newspaper ads, all of these different things, putting up posters, flyers, sending letters out. I was so old school when I started, and I want to show my journey through this book so that people really understand what I went through and how I conquered it. And the team I had around me, now you'll be surprised at the team. The team is not necessarily your solicitors, your accountants. The team is your family. And I had some really good family members around me. First of all, my 4 children, and then secondly, my sister Debbie. So it was really good to have that team around me that pushed and encouraged and supported, and it was my cheerleaders. That's why I've become everyone else's cheerleaders nowadays, because they were my champions at the beginning of my business, full stop. They were there to support me. So I will be doing a special on Facebook. I'll be doing that live. And I'll be going through the book with you all. You can pre-order the book as well. And there'll be links in the feed that I can share with, that I will be sharing with my audience on this podcast, this show, to share with you where you can actually get the book. It's on Amazon as we speak, but the true release is on the 1st of October.
Well, congratulations. I can't wait to get my signed copy and, and read through the pages and, get to journey with you, using your story to journey along, my financial independence. Now, let me reel you back in for the last question of today's podcast. And I'd like to know, what tools do we need to be successful in managing a large property portfolio? And a large property portfolio, let me put it at 10 plus properties.
So how I manage my portfolio is I have a CRM system, and that is a customer relation management system. I have on that my rental portfolio. I manage all my properties. So on that CRM, I have my insurers for all the property. I have my handyman on that CRM system, their details. I have who's let the property out for me if I didn't do it myself. I also have where the rents are coming in, what's rents is due, what money's going out, what bank accounts all of the profits are going into, and how is that being split off. I talked about splitting off for anything that void periods. There's always a pot for that. So that pot sits there until needed. I never take it out. I never use it. I have an accountancy pot as well. There's loads of systems that you need, but I always say try and keep it under one CRM system. And if you search, you'll come across quite a few good CRM systems that deal with all things property under one umbrella. Try not to be all over the space and spreading out your load as well, because that can really become confusing. But when you're keeping a record of what you're doing, it makes easy flow, that someone else can come in, pick that up, and if I take off time, my team can actually pick it up and run with it and know exactly what needs to go out and when it needs to happen. And these are your insurances updates. It could be your gas safety certificate, your electrical certificates, all of these things that you need to know how to have on the system and know when their due dates are due as well. But I always say having good team members is key. Having someone work with you on your business and keeping your portfolios is a really good thing. But systems is key to it. But having a good team behind you as well, and working together, and then know what needs to happen and when it needs to happen, is you can't be without a good team behind it.
Yes, there's power in teamwork, and teamwork, after all, is together everyone achieves more.
That's right.
So you are not only a property investor, but you are a coach as well. You coach women through the whole, property investment journey from A to Z.
Yeah.
How can people contact you? How can women out there who are looking for financial independence, who want to get into the property industry, how can we, or the women out there, reach out to you?
Right. I always like to really I call it the e-coffee or tea moment with Sapphire, because I really want to just get to know you. I don't want you to feel pressurized into buying courses from us or sign up for a membership. I want to get to know whether we're a good fit and where's your journey? What do you want for yourself? So I offer a free e-coffee/tea for any of our listeners and any person that wants to get into investing. And it's not to say I don't work with men. Let me just clarify that, because some of our listeners are men. So I'm not trying to isolate you, but I'm trying to build out other things at the back end of that. That's purely for women. But I do work with male clients. I do have a few male clients that I do work with. So I'm not isolating you, my male listeners. I'm just creating something that is predominantly for our women investors. So if you want to reach out and contact me, you can go on any of our social medias. That's 50 at Savvy Women. Or you can contact me on contact@savvywomen.co.uk. And also reach out to me via WhatsApp or Messenger. All of the details are there. So just reach out. We're on all over the place on social media. So reach out to me, and you can contact me, Sapphire Gray. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Reach out and let's have a chat together.
Well, Sapphire, thank you so much for taking us through today's edition. Thank you for the knowledge, for the gems. I truly appreciate it. And once more, congratulations on your book coming out this October the 1st. For the listener,
the book title is How to Become a Savvy Women in Property Investing and Nail It. So, 1st of October, you'll see all the promos going around. So, yeah, I please invite you to buy it and support, because the support that you're giving when you purchase, we are donating back to women charities that are dealing specifically with women that have been in abusive relationships. So we're donating a proportion of our royalties back to these charities. We do have 2 charities that we are lined up with, and all will be revealed on our live on the 1st of October. So I look forward to sharing it then.
Well, Sapphire, that's a gift that keeps on giving. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dear listener, thank you for tuning in. And now be sure to listen to our previous podcast and our future podcast editions on your podcast platform of choice. Now, once more, be you, be bold, be property savvy with the Savvy Women Group. I'm Charity Kene, and on studio with me was Miss Sapphire Gray, taking us through the current state of the property market. See you next week. Bye-bye.
This week's episode of the Savvy Property Investors Podcast was brought to you by our sponsor, the Savvy Women Group. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's show, head over to our website, www.savvywomen.co.uk, to gain access to our free resources and more insights about our guest speaker today. Remember, we make your business our business, so you can unlock your full potential and improve your quality of life.